Coming up on Network Africa. At least 40 passengers killed in Zimbabwe after their bus burst into flames in the southern region. Seven United Nations peacekeepers killed in the Beni village of Democratic Republic of Congo. And the Pentagon announces a reduction of U.S. forces in Africa by about 10% over the next few years. Hello and welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Teniola Shubawale. We begin in Zimbabwe, where yet another bus accident has claimed the lives of at least 40 people in the Gwanda district of the capital, Harare. Police say the bus traveling in the southern region burst into flames as a gas cylinder belonging to a passenger was thought to have exploded. Dozens of others were injured in the Brooklyn Express bus that was reduced to ashes. Civil Protection Unit Director Mr. Nathan Nkomo says the government is releasing $15,000 to the families of the victims for funeral expenses. This accident comes barely 2 weeks after the death of 50 passengers after two buses sideswiped along the Harare-Mutare Road. Joining us now is a Zimbabwean journalist, Nigel Yamatumbu, to tell us more on this. Hello, Nigel. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, my pleasure.
Give us an update on the situation.
Well, currently the police are still moving in to really just conclude final investigations, final discussions as to how the bus operator allowed someone to get in there with the gas cylinder, and possibly how best the Zimbabwean citizens can be protected on the road, seeing that this is a second accident that has happened only within a fortnight. So as things stand, yes, it's another yes, it's another state-assisted funeral for the bereaved. But more importantly, it's a real time to really discuss these fatalities that continue to happen on the road, and they continue to go on the rise.
Nigel, like you mentioned, it comes barely 2 weeks after the death of 50 passengers after two buses collided. But how are Zimbabweans reacting to this latest incident?
Well, there's a real great sense of among all stakeholders from government. I think barely, as we say, 50 people just 2 weeks ago passed on. There was another accident that claimed the lives of about 6 or 7 people last week, and we have this unfortunate incident. So there is even some a sense of fear to use the public transporting system. There is as to the safety of the people on the road.
Well, police say a passenger was carrying a gas cylinder and that was what exploded. Why are people allowed to carry such dangerous materials on board?
To do so. And it's actually a real shock that they were allowed in that particular case to ferry such dangerous explosive materials. So, well, the unfortunate thing is the passenger had carried is so among the deceased. But what is constant public education, constant public awareness to ensure that such situations do not occur again?
Well, the government says it is releasing $15,000 to the families of the victims for funeral expenses. And seeing as this is not the first time this is happening, what measures have been put in place to avoid a reoccurrence?
Yeah, well, beyond the 15,000, I think now there's a discussion on improving the Road Traffic Safety Act. There's also now a discussion around increasing police visibility and stands on our roads. And there's also just, discussions more at a traffic safety council level that will ensure that such incidents do not occur again.
Zimbabwean journalist Nigel Yamatumbu, thanks for giving us an update on that story. Moving on now, at least 7 UN peacekeepers have been killed in clashes with militias in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Eastern Congo has been plagued by banditry and armed insurrections for more than 2 decades since the fall of military ruler Mobutu Sese Seko. But the past year has seen a surge in violence around North Kivu. Beni and the surrounding villages are also suffering an Ebola outbreak that has infected over 300 people and killed 2/3 of them. Repeated armed attacks by at least 2 rebel groups are hampering international efforts to control the virus. Gabon's Constitutional Court has intervened to avert a political crisis in the country brought about by the ill health of President Ali Bongo. There has been no government meeting since he was taken to hospital in Saudi Arabia last month. The court has now amended the constitution to allow the vice president or prime minister to run cabinet meetings if the president is unavailable, a move the opposition says is illegal. Amid speculation that the president had suffered a stroke and some even questioning whether he was still alive, Mr. Bongo's office finally admitted on Sunday that he was recovering from surgery. In 2009, Ali Bongo succeeded his father, Omar Bongo, who had been president for more than 40 years. Ethiopia's former deputy intelligence chief has been arrested amid investigations into corruption and human rights abuses committed by the security forces. Yared Zerihan, the former deputy head of the National Security Agency, is one of more than 60 intelligence and military figures arrested since Monday. The move has been widely welcomed by human rights groups. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed promised a strong line on corruption and human rights abuses when he came to power in April this year, and has passed a string of reforms, including ending a 2-decade conflict with neighboring Eritrea. Analysts say a year ago, many Ethiopians would not have dared to imagine what they are being treated to right now. The United States says it is reducing its forces in Africa by about 10% over the next few years. A Pentagon statement said in West Africa, where many jihadist groups are active, the emphasis would shift from tactical assistance to advising, assisting, and sharing intelligence. Commander Candice Tretch says